Welcome to Speed Talk Live, which isn't really live, but is a poorly produced podcast featuring me and my big mouth rattling off, sometimes incoherently, about racing and sometimes featuring what we hope are interesting guests. Hey everyone, it's good to be back. I've been on a road trip for a couple weeks. I spent time at North Wilkesboro Speedway for the All-Star race, stayed in North Carolina for a week for the Coke 600, and now I'm back home here in Orlando. Loved being at North Wilkesboro. What a fantastic event. It was great in the sense that the track was reinvented, so to speak. It was reopened after it had been closed since 1996. It was great seeing the fans. It was great seeing the racing. Yeah, the All-Star race itself on Sunday wasn't exactly a barn burner, but for the community, it was a fantastic event. And I actually got to talk to some people in the local community. And one of those was a guy named Jeff Mitchell, who told me about what it meant for North Wilkesboro to be back racing with NASCAR. What's your name?
Jeff Mitchell.
Is Mitchell?
Yes.
And you live here how
North
far?
Wilkesboro, 5 miles away.
What do you think about all of this coming back?
Well, first, we didn't think it'd ever happen. So we want to thank Junior, Marcus Smith, everybody for helping. But it's wonderful. I mean, this is cold chills. I mean, just getting to go back. When you grow up at the racetrack, then all of a sudden it's taken away from you. It's like you lost a family member. So it's like all of a sudden the family members came back. So, I mean, as you can tell, we're all pumped up. We're excited.
Has it been like when you saw were you here for the truck race?
Yes.
What was it like to see the green flag fall on the first competitive race here since 1996?
Oh, I mean, it's just, again, it's a dream come true. So something you didn't think would ever really happen. And then Kyle Larson winning, that's my wife's favorite driver. So she was excited. But just seeing a NASCAR sanctioned event for the first time in 27 years was just awesome.
So what do you think about the future? What can we do to keep coming back here, and how can you sustain this going forward, you think?
Well, I think NASCAR has to realize their roots were in this type of racing. I think the mile and a half was a good business model for a while, but as you can see, to me it's better to have 30,000 people fill the place up than have 150,000, and half full. So I think it's what people want to see. I think the crews like it. They can bring their families up. You're not that far from Charlotte. I mean, again, this is where stock car racing started in our heads. So I mean, this is home for NASCAR, and we think it's got a good future. We'll have to repave the track, of course, the next year or so, but for what they've done in 1 year, from being in town and seeing what was going on a year ago to now, I don't know how they do that. I think they work 24/7 to get it done, but it's awesome. It's just awesome.
How does it affect you personally? Are you retired? Do you own a business here, or?
I'm retired from Lowe's companies. My wife just retired, so that's why I made it. Because there's two things in our family we love. It's Appalachian State football and NASCAR racing. So now we got both within driving distance easily, because we had to go to Martinsville, you had to go to Bristol, Darlington, which ain't that far.
Yeah.
But that wasn't our track.
Yeah.
This is our track. I mean, we take pride in it. Not all the races were great back in the 80s and 90s, but, that's where I fell in love with Richard Petty. That's where I fell in love with Martin Martin. And, working at Lowe's, Jimmy Johnson. That's the only three drivers I've ever pulled for.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it, Mr.
All right.
Mitchell.
I'll tell you.
Kyle Larson won the truck race the first night we were there. And it was kind of cool because before North Wilkesboro closed, they put a hydraulic system to lift the cars up to the winner's circle on top of a roof, which was kind of cool, except the roof was on top of the media center. Now, I knew they had poured a lot of money and a lot of hard work into reinvigorating this track and bringing it back, redoing the facilities. But I have to admit that sitting inside the media center, once a car was actually on top above us, the roof kind of creaked, and it was a little unnerving to me. But of course, it turned out to be fine. It was a great weekend, a lot of great energy. And I asked Kyle Larson,
you're the
after
first
his truck
NASCAR winner here since Jeff Gordon, which is kind of cool. Is that a big deal to you, stuff like that, or being the first winner at something in the modern times? Is that kind of a big deal to you?
Well, it's not something I think about while I'm out there. But then when I hear things mentioned in here or whatever, then yeah, I think it you realize the specialness of it. So Yeah, I mean, I could give you the same answer. I don't think any of us thought that we would ever race here. So to win a NASCAR national tour race at North Wilkesboro is crazy to think about. So I mean, the scoreboard too. It still had like the finishing order of that race in '96, and then I thought they were just going to leave it like that. And then I actually noticed during the race, they were like keeping up to date with what we had going on. So they've done a great job of like touching on the history this week, and it's been cool to see.
And confirming that was the first time you've ever been raised up to a victory lane on hydraulics.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think I think Bristol's the only other one like you're up on top of something. So yeah, it's cool. Well, obviously I've not done that, so I hope it's my second one.
So I
year.
spent the week in North Carolina waiting for the Coca-Cola 600. I often cover that race. I was supposed to meet with Richard Childress on that Saturday, but I wasn't feeling that good, so I decided to postpone that. More about that later because we're still going to meet. And then, of course, it rained out on Saturday. I went down there Sunday. Unfortunately, it rained out that day as well. I had to fly back to Orlando on Monday for my weekly job the next day because that was Memorial Day. So I flew back and covered the race from home. And it was really cool because even though the race was delayed, we finally got it in. It took forever, it seemed like. Ryan Blaney was a popular winner of that race. It was great to see him in victory lane. And then we moved on to Worldwide Technology Raceway, which, by the way, is always going to be known as Gateway to me because Worldwide Technology doesn't pay me to call it that. But I guess I just did. Anyway, and of course, Kyle Busch scored his third win of the season there.
Inside Larson, but off turn 4, Kyle Busch will get his 63rd career victory in the NASCAR Cup Series.
Might even get a bow here, boys.
And a popular win.
And that's got to make Richard Childress really happy, which is kind of weird to me because it wasn't all that long ago that Richard Childress and Kyle Busch seemed to be mortal enemies. They actually exchanged some shoving and punching a few years ago. But, Richard Childress said Kyle Busch has brought a different vibe to the team now that he's
helped
there.
Us all around. Number one, he's winning races, showing we can win races. He's helped Austin a whole lot. Austin's had some really good runs. He drove up to about 10th till the 2-car wrecked him there on purpose, sort of a payback. But Kyle has been really. I mean, he's such a pleasure to work with. Everybody said, "Man, how y'all going to get along?" Same question they asked me about. You and Dale won't last 6 months. We lasted 20 years. I want to keep Kyle there, and hopefully we can end his career when he gets ready to.
Now, this weekend, we've got, of course, NASCAR racing at Le Mans for the first time in, 37 years, something like that. And it's been a great effort to see that Garage 56 car on track with Rockefeller and with Jenson Button and, of course, Jimmy Johnson and all the Hendrick folks there. They're not going to win anything. They're in a class by themselves, but they're testing new stuff and new technologies and new things that we could see at a NASCAR track near us soon. And I'll be writing about that for Forbes, so make sure you check that out and let me know in the comments what you think, because I think some of that technology that we see on that Garage 56 car could be something that we see down the road. Now, while I didn't get to talk to Richard Childress, that's coming up this week, and I hope to bring that interview to you in a future episode. I'm going to talk to him about the winery. That's going to be my main focus, is because in 2004, when he first opened the winery there in Welcome, North Carolina, I visited there for a magazine article for a magazine that's unfortunately no longer around, called Racing Milestones. And while before that meeting, I was kind of like a casual wine drinker. It was Boone's Farm, twist off cap, and that was it. He and his folks there really got me interested in the beauty of wine and what wine is paired with a good meal. And ever since then, I've been a so-called wino. And I love wine. I love having it with good meals now, and I belong to a wine club and all kind of things. So I'm going to be talking to Mr. Childress about that, and I'll have that for you in a future episode. But somebody I did talk to this week was a young driver, kind of got on my radar, and up and coming. He's just started in the truck series. He finished 12th at North Wilkesboro, which is really cool. His name's Chris Hacker, and I had an interview with him, and I'm going to be doing an article for Forbes. But the interview I had with him, I really like this young man. He's got a great future, I think. And I talked to him because he's faced some challenges along the way. So here's the interview I had with Chris Hacker. We are talking with young driver Chris Hacker today. Chris from Noblesville, Indiana, is 23 years old, making his way up through the ranks. Started in the quarter midgets in Indiana, worked his way up to the Legends cars, and then ARCA Menards West, and then the ARCA series, and now he's racing the truck series. I had the distinct pleasure of watching this young man race at North Wilkesboro, finish 12th, and obviously, since I knew I was going to be talking to him, I was thrilled to see him finish 12th. So, Chris, welcome, my friend. Good to have you. Thanks for joining me today. We could start out talking about that North Wilkesboro thing because I loved being there, and I know that after your 12th place finish, you love being there as well.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I appreciate it a bunch. But yeah, North Wilkesboro was pretty awesome. We went in there kind of excited because a lot of the tracks that I'm hitting here lately, everybody else has ran on and I haven't. So North Wilkesboro was one that nobody has ran on, so it kind of evened out the slate a little bit. But we went in there with a good team, On Point Motorsports, and obviously with Morgan supporting us behind the scenes and stuff like that. And practice went decent. We had I think we were 6th on the best 10 lap average on speed, which at North Wilkesboro with the pavement being so rough, it's all about 10 lap average, 20 lap average, not really your fast time because you're just wearing tires down so much. But I messed up a little bit myself in qualifying, but man, I mean, we were I think a lap down until about 40 to go. And
yep.
I was in the race car, under caution. I was like, man, it's just going to be another top 20 finish. It's going to be another average race. And caution came out. We got the lucky dog. And then I think there was a green, white checkered. And at that point of the green, white checkered, I think I was 16, 17, something like that. And we took the green, went into turn 1. Everything was pretty smooth. And then we took the white, and I just dove it in there as hard as I could, and I didn't get into anybody, so that's good. But I think I passed 4 or 5 cars just going into turn 1, and I had somebody right behind me pushing me as hard as I could into turn 3, but I locked the brakes down. I held it up against the wall in 3 and 4, and luckily we were able to come out with the top 12. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, it was weird. I've never really raced a track like that before with that old of pavement on there. But like I said, it helped even the playing field with everybody because nobody's been there before.
That had to be energizing for you, though. I mean, you're coming up through the ranks, and let's face it, you're not with a top tier team, but here you are, man. You were. They knew you were there. You're running top 15. That day, you must have been so pumped after that was over.
Yeah, right after it was over, I was pretty worn out, honestly. I don't have a cool shirt yet. I need to look into that, especially after St. Louis. I was really hot at St. Louis too, but all I got is the basic helmet fan and stuff like that. So I was really worn out. I went to the med center, got an IV, but once after I got the IV, I felt like $1 million. I was like, this is awesome. We didn't win the race, but it was a win for everybody. Just slowly making our way up, making better finishes and stuff like that. It was awesome. Everybody was happy.
And I was glad to see it. Like I said, I was cheering you on. But something that maybe nobody knows, or not many people know yet. You're like a lot of young drivers, especially from Indiana. Chase, my friend Chase Briscoe comes to mind, and of course that Stewart guy. I forget his first name, but when you're coming up through the ranks, but there's something a little different with Chris Hacker. Talk about the fact that you suffer from I don't want to say suffer because you're obviously overcoming it, but you had a brachial plexus injury known as a BPI. You have 60 to 70% range of motion in your left arm. How has that I mean, you've obviously overcome it, right? And
Yeah,
learned to live
yeah.
with it.
Mhm.
What's it like to be able to accomplish what you're accomplishing with the maybe the limitations you have with your left arm?
Yeah, so as far as my BPI injury goes, I got mine at birth due to medical malpractice complications. A lot of people can get them, from like motorcycle wrecks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pretty much what makes it happen is when the head and the shoulders separate, it ruptures the nerves that connect your arm to your major nervous system. But mine happens to be in my left arm, and growing up with racing, there wasn't really too many complications until we got into like stock cars and late models when I was about 13. I was really small back then. My nickname was actually Smalls. That's what everybody would always call me. But late models is a lot more aggressive. A lot more bump and runs and stuff like
Yep.
that. So there'd be problems like keeping my hands on the wheel and stuff like that, and we were able to overcome it. But here lately, I mean, just with it being with me since birth, I've never really had anything to exactly compare it to, if that makes sense at all. So, there's definitely been some struggles. I mean, I don't. It's been about a year now since I've been working in the shop full time. But when I met, some of the people at Morgan and Morgan originally, it was just over a year ago at Daytona, and I was a crew guy. And the biggest hurdle here lately was, just trying to work like above my head or like laying down on my back and like, trying to put bolts and nuts together just that are in a far reach a little bit and stuff like that. So the biggest hurdle that we thought was going to be a problem was going to be shifting at road courses. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but we shift at St. Louis
Yep.
and 1 and 2. And so I tried it once in practice. It went fine. I tried it again in qualifying, and I messed up miserably on my acceleration. Luckily, I didn't mess up shifting. That would have been a whole bigger problem, way bigger problem. But yeah, I was so used to accelerating in the fourth gear, and I accelerated way too quick and spun the tires and messed up my qualifying. But I started doing it in the race, and it wasn't really that big of a problem. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but with road course racing and shifting in stock cars, you're mainly shifting on the straight line. If you try shifting while you're turning, you're just gonna like start wheel hopping and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so back and forth, I was like, well, if I'm shifting going straight, like it's not gonna be a problem because I won't have to turn the wheel with my left hand. I'll just have to hold it straight. And yeah, running St. Louis just helped, me build confidence with that, because once I got the wheel turn, I was able to hold it with my left arm for a split second, shift it really quickly, and it really wasn't a problem at all. So, moving forward with my career, I don't really think, I'm going to have anything that will let me hold me back. Like I said, growing up, there was a lot of struggles and stuff like that, but, I'm just moving one day at a time and adapting my environment, I guess you could say.
So would it be fair to say, because I work with a lot of veterans,
Mhm.
and mainly PTSD, but I also deal with some TBI, some traumatic brain injuries and stuff. And one of the things they've always told me is it's not that they're going to get back to quote unquote normal, because their normal is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's an advantage, but you having this all your life, you've probably carried this over into your racing. Would it be fair to say that you're learning to do what you need to do in order to get done what you need to get done, which is drive a race car?
Yeah, so obviously it's not the best case scenario to have brachial plexus injury, but me personally, if I were to choose, I would prefer to have it from birth, because if you go say like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of your whole life having two normally functioning arms, and then right away going to having to deal with nerve damage, it's going to be a crazy wake up call, and it's going to be hard to adapt. So just being able to live, my childhood outside of racing, and then my childhood growing up into racing, I've been able to like mentally prepare myself and to figure out what I need to do in order to adapt to the task at hand.
As NASCAR, have you had to do any anything to adapt inside the race car? Have you had to, maybe different pedals or something? Is NASCAR allowed you to do anything like that?
So in NASCAR, the only adaptations we really have are like switch extensions. You can't really do much. NASCAR is really particular on their rule books and stuff, which I respect that. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't really want like a little golden ticket, I guess you could say. I want to be treated like everybody else. So we put switch extensions on the switches so I can reach over with my right hand and switch them. And we can move the steering column and we can choose what the steering wheel is. And I kind of just have my steering wheel set a little bit differently than those other guys. But other than that, I mean, we're just doing what everybody else does. Earlier in late models, back when I was saying how I like have struggle holding onto the wheel, my left arm would fall off and I couldn't get it back up. So what my dad did is he built a window net from the roll cage
Mm-hmm.
to the seat. And so my hand, if it did fall, it would just be right by the wheel and I could just swing it back up really quick. And then back then we were able to, mess with how the seat was mounted. We could move it over so my right arm would have more range of movement and stuff like that. But as far as NASCAR, only thing is where the steering wheel is located in the switch extensions.
Did NASCAR, and I know that I've talked to behind the scenes with the drivers. Did NASCAR, I mean, did they have you, because you got to exit the car sometimes in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Did they test you on that, so to speak? Did they actually say, okay, we're going to make you get out of the car within a certain amount of seconds? Was there anything like that?
Me like specifically, no. So after Jordan Anderson's wreck, which I believe it was last year at Talladega, they came out over the winter. They're like, we're gonna make sure that everybody can exit the car in a certain amount of time. And so like it was kind of just I was tested because like everybody else was tested.
Right.
I guess that
Okay.
it wasn't really because of my injury or anything like that. But passed with flying colors. It was really no problem at all. Like I said, it helps just having it my whole life. So, I know where I need to put my arm when I'm getting out, how to make sure it's like not in the way and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, there's been a little bit of struggles, but nothing that's really ever like made me sit down and question if I can do this or not. I've always been able to get over the hurdles.
Well, I have no doubt that you can, and you're not going to have an issue, my friend. Let's talk about something that I'm kind of wondering about, young drivers like yourself, and aside from the injury, just being a young driver.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Kyle Busch a couple weeks ago at Charlotte, and he talked about somebody asked him about John Hunter Nemechek.
It's not a success game anymore. It's a money game. So if he can find the cash, then there will be a seat for him, I'm pretty sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be racing the stuff that he's racing right now as much as he's racing right now if it wasn't for, the Serve Pro sponsorship that we have on Brexton. So there's no question that you have to have funding behind you because these owners anymore, there's not enough money in the sport that they're making money that they're willing to reinvest it into their talent pool, into their driver pool and put it out there. So I think Rick is probably the only one with Larson. Everybody else is all sponsorship driven, and fortunately for me, I've got some great sponsors this year behind me with RCR, and our program's been building, and we've been continuing to expand forward on the sponsorship side. So
he was talking about that talent is less important than money. Is that something that you've run across so far in your career, that the money outweighs the talent?
Long story short, yeah. But there's a process you have to go through to be a NASCAR driver. Like, you can't just like wake up one day, say I want to be a NASCAR driver and go do it. I mean, like Frankie Muniz, he had to go test late models before he could do ARCA, and he has to do ARCA before he can do trucks, yada yada yada. So there's an aspect where talent is a factor, but if you want to make it big, it's almost been, what I've learned 100% money, which, it kind of sucks, but that's what the business has come to nowadays. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I grew up in like an upper middle class family and stuff like that. But I mean, for trucks, you can spend anywhere from, 2.5 to 3.5 million a year. And that's just for the truck series. And it's like, there's not really too many families who have that to just spend in 365 days. So it's a little bit of a struggle. I mean, obviously sponsors help. I came in to my first truck race thinking it was going to be my last one too. And luckily, I teamed up with a great agent. His name's Nathan Blaisdell, and
Yeah.
He's the one that actually connected me with Morgan & Morgan. And without Morgan & Morgan, I probably still wouldn't be a race car driver, and I probably would have never made my Xfinity start out in Richmond earlier this year. So, they've been helping me on where I've lacked, and that's just the financial side of it. So for them to be on board with that and supporting me not only with the financials, and then also with what I believe in with kids with brachial plexus injury, it's awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's NASCAR has definitely become a money game nowadays, and you can like I said, it takes a little bit of skill because NASCAR approves you, but just you'll see a lot of other people excel a lot quicker than others just because they're able to write the check for it.
So you've got a great sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. I think, and that kind of blew my mind when I really thought about it, because I don't know of too many law firms that are, sponsors in NASCAR. And obviously you want to have them for a long time. And you talked about how much they supported you, not only with the truck and on the race, but with the BPI as well. And hopefully they're going to be your sponsor for a long time and hopefully follow you to Xfinity and Cup. But you always have to look at other sponsors, right? What have you learned about having to deal with sponsors and maybe, kind of courting some other sponsors that you may need as you moved up? How have those lessons been to this point?
Yeah, so originally after my first truck race, it was a one-off sponsor. The next one was a one-off sponsor, and we just had multiple, one race sponsors. Morgan & Morgan is actually the first one that's come on board for a multi-race deal, and we've already been talking about stuff for next year, which beforehand it wouldn't even have thought. Like beforehand, we were trying to figure out stuff for next year when November came by. So to be able to already be figuring out plans for next year this early into the year, it shows a lot of great positivity on their side, also with my side. But yeah, just the sponsor game is crazy. I mean, it's the biggest thing with NASCAR is the business to business side of it. Obviously TV time is very important and stuff like that, and creating fan base. But Morgan & Morgan wants calls into their office and stuff like that, obviously. So we're just, trying to push like how much help they give to people. They're America's largest injury law firm, and I'm glad they've connected with me because they also handle brachial plexus cases. So I feel like it's just a very like serendipitous partnership, and like you said, I hope it goes far, and we're trying everything we can to make them happy, and hopefully it's going well for them. But sponsorship's just hard to come by nowadays. Honestly, it's crazy, especially with just how much money it costs. I mean, it's hard to go to these people and ask them to spend this much money for to have their logo on a truck for 2 to 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, but there's a lot of ways you can break it down. It's a lot more complex than that. I mean, they can go spend that money on a billboard, but how many people see that billboard versus how many people see it on TV? Or, you can get your logo on the hauler, and the hauler is a moving billboard for the whole year, So there's a lot of ways to break it down. But it's just, yeah, like it's not as easy as it was back, 20, 30 years ago or anything like that.
We don't have, the big sponsors, the big corporate sponsors. Sounds like you've learned your lessons well, my friend, and I'm really happy for you. Let me ask you this. Where does Chris Hacker see himself a year from now?
A year from now, honestly, 5 years ago, I would have told you I'd be in Cup by now. But I told my parents I wanted to be a NASCAR driver by the time I was 18. But the older I get, the more I'm learning that it's better to walk and get there walking than try to run there and trip over yourself. So, hopefully next year we're in a very, very competitive truck full time, or, a decently competitive Xfinity car full time. My biggest problem here lately is just, I'm racing about once a month. So every time I get back into the vehicle, I got to knock the cobwebs off again, kind of. So just being able to get in a consistent ride every weekend is going to help me out a lot. So just hopefully full time in one of the two series.
And when you go full time, you talk about you wanted to be in Cup by 18. What's your more realistic goal? When do you think Chris Hacker will see him in a Cup ride?
I mean, honestly, it's hard to say, because if you have one bad year, it can set you back a year. You know what I mean? Like if you don't perform the way you need to, if bad luck's on your side for a year, it can set you back. But I mean, if things go really, really well, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if I started making my Cup rides, by the age of 25, 26, you know what I mean? Like I feel like if I go full-time Xfinity next year, have a pretty decent year, and then, by the time 2025 rolls around, still full-time Xfinity, maybe hit Daytona in the Cup car or something like that. Like, start going into part-time Cup then. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at all. And if it takes longer, it takes longer. Yeah. I mean, you can't rush the good things in life. So just however long it takes, I'll still be enjoying the ride on the way it gets there.
Chris, my friend, thank you. I know I'm cheering you on. I'm hoping for the best of success. You're also an inspiration. I'm sure there's other people out there who have BPI and know that there is no limitations and there's nothing you can't do. And besides, you got your own legal team, right? That's one thing you don't have to worry about.
Exactly.
Morgan. So I appreciate it, my friend. We'll see you next time. When's your next race, sir?
Next race, I actually can't tell you exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my next truck race will be August 11th, but we have an Xfinity race coming up soon.
Oh, good.
So
yeah. we'll look forward to that, and I'll look forward to getting the press release so we can get it out there. So,
of course, man. I appreciate you so much for this.
Thanks, Chris Hacker. I appreciate it. We will get you back right after this. That's it. That's the second episode ever of Speed Talk Live. If you're wondering where I got the Speed Talk Live name, it's a show I used to have, a radio show on ESPN back in the mid 2005 to 2008. And it harkened back to the fact that I had it in front of a live audience. Obviously, I don't have a live audience here. I have you folks listening. Leave me some comments. I'll give you some ways you can interact and leave some feedback. And who knows, we may add a live element to this in the future, but only if there's enough interest. So thanks for listening. Will the next episode be next week? I don't know. It may be a week or so. It depends on the amount of time I can get to do this because I got a lot going on. But if there's enough interest, we'll keep this going. We'll give you an opportunity to ask some drivers some things, because we'll do some live driver interviews and some different things going forward. So let me know what you think. I know it's badly produced. I am certainly not a podcast producer, but you know what? I'm trying. So until next time, I'll see you. Thanks for listening to Speed Talk Live. For questions or just to tell us how bad our production is or to leave other feedback, leave us a comment below. For all the latest NASCAR news, visit www.cupscene.com. Until next time, peace out and let's go racing.